Ladies and gentlemen, in today's video, we are going to be taking a dive back in time and looking at 10 of the biggest Linsanity runs that have happened in the NFL. For those who don't know what a Linsanity run is, it's essentially when a player performs at an elite level for a very short period of time and then just vanishes. They're gone. Now, I will say a few of the guys that I'm about to mention are still in the league or did have roles past their Linsanity run, but their roles were never even close to what they were during that short period of time. Couple of quick plugs before we hop into it. Don't forget to use code WyattzWorld on G Fuel or Prize Picks, where you can save yourself a discount on any G Fuel products or match up to $100 of your first deposit. But that's all I got for plugs. Let's get into the video. So, first Linsanity run that I've got is actually coming out of last year, and it is none other than Joshua Dobbs. Man, that stretch of 2 or 3 games right when he got traded to Minnesota, he actually had people convinced that he was him. I mean, it was crazy. It was a brand new offense at the time. I think it was versus Atlanta. He was only there for 48 hours, and Kevin O'Connell orchestrated him through the game. He had some crazy scrambles, didn't turn the ball over at all, won the game. Wasn't even supposed to play that game, by the way. Jaren Hall just happened to get hurt. But the week after that, he went out and beat New Orleans again, had no turnovers, a passer rating over 100. Things were looking great, and then over the next 2 games, he had 2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Then Nick Mullins got his opportunity, and Joshua Dobbs became a 3rd-string quarterback in front of our very eyes. I mean, a lot of it was luck, though, man. Those scrambles, ridiculous. All the outside passes that people were reaching to pull down, ridiculous. The guy couldn't hit someone in the numbers. Josh is a great dude, very smart dude, but I can say with a pretty big surge of confidence that Joshua Dobbs' best days of football were probably those 2 weeks with the Vikings, and those days are behind him. All right, up next we have Tim Tebow. I feel like he has to be on any Linsanity run list, even though he did play for like an entire year in Denver, which was in 2011, and he actually played for a little bit in 2010 with Denver too. But anyway, 2011 was his Linsanity run, because the thing about Tim Tebow is this guy had the world in the palm of his hand. He had people doing something called the Tebow, where they get on their hands and knees in a hallway and do this. Like, there were schools that were punishing children for doing it because it was getting so out of hand. But here's the funny part about it. This guy was fucking ass. In 2011, the guy finished an entire regular season with 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 46%. I mean, you don't understand. Balls would come out of this guy's hand like he was trying to throw a fucking tomahawk. But again, his team elevated him so much, and then he had that amazing performance versus Pittsburgh where he had like 300 yards and 2 touchdowns off of 10 completions. Then the next week, he got annihilated by New England, signed with the Jets in the offseason. I'm pretty sure as Mark Sanchez's backup, and I don't think we ever heard from him again. This guy realistically wouldn't have had a Linsanity run if the fans wouldn't have given him one. Like, the amount of jersey sales, the amount of attention he got. I know he was a beast in college, but it was absurd for what he accomplished in the NFL. Next Linsanity run we're going to talk about is 2019 Breshad Perriman, baby. So Breshad Perriman was a wide receiver who played in the NFL from like 2016 all the way to 2022. He was a 1st-round draft pick, but I just don't think ever ended up adapting to the league, and I don't think he was the most healthy guy ever either. But in 2019, Breshad was playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and at the very end of the season, Mike Evans got hurt, missing like the last 3 or 4 games where Perriman got to step into a role. And in the last 3 weeks of the season, he had like 350 yards and 4 total touchdowns. This guy won people fantasy championships, literally. All in an order, he had 5 for 113 and 3 touchdowns, 7 for 102, and then 5 for 134 and 1 more touchdown. After that, he would go to the Jets. Then the next year, he would go to the Lions, where he was cut from the roster before the season started, and then he went on Tampa Bay's bench for 2 years before he fizzled out of the league. Now, he might not have ever turned into the legend that many thought he would, but he did turn into a lot of people's legend in fantasy of 2019. Now moving on, we have 2021 and 2022 Mike White. I never fell for this one. I always thought this guy was garbage, but a lot of people did think that he was going to replace Zach Wilson with the New York Jets and be the future. Well, they thought that for like a week in each of the 2 seasons, because in 2021, Mike White threw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. Then 2 weeks later, he would throw for 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and get benched for the rest of the year. However, then he would come back in week 11 of 2022 and absolutely whoop the Bears while completing 20 22 out of 28 of his passes, throwing for 315 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, and having a passer rating of 149. Then the commotion started again about the next coming of Mike White, and what did he do in his 3 games after that? Threw for like 800 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 picks, never played a game for the Jets again, signed with the Dolphins as a backup, and I don't know if we've heard of him since. Honestly, I think the most insane thing about this guy is when he stood at the podium after one of his 2 good games in the NFL and said, "I honestly feel like I should have been the #1 overall draft pick." What an idiot. Next up, we gotta go with Peyton Hillis too, another guy that has to be included on every Linsanity run because he's probably gotta have the most infamous one. So in 2008, Peyton Hillis was a 7th round draft pick for the Denver Broncos as a running back. First year, he had 340 yards and 5 touchdowns. The second year, he only had 54 total yards and 1 touchdown. And then in 2010, he signed with the Browns, where he would throw up 1,177 yards, 11 touchdowns, and grace the front cover of fucking Madden. After that, he would go on to have 580 yards, 3 touchdowns, get cut by the Browns, sign with the Chiefs for a year, then sign with the Giants for 2 years, and then at the end of 2014, he was out of the league. I mean, that is literally the definition of like 1 year that was substantial and the rest just ass. And also, I have got to know what was going on in Madden's head or EA's head. Like, was there really no other options that year? Because I find that really hard to believe. Like, Peyton Hillis, that was your cover athlete for Madden. Good gracious. Now moving on, this will be a quick one. We have Jonas Gray for the Patriots in 2014. So Jonas Gray was an unsigned running back free agent who only played in the league for 2 years. And in his rookie season for New England, in week 11, he had a game versus the Indianapolis Colts where he had 37 carries for 201 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. The week after that, they scratched him. He would go on to only get 20 carries the rest of that year. Then the next season, he would sign with Miami, end up on Jacksonville, not scoring a single touchdown all year, and he never played again. Jonas Gray, thanks for coming. Next Linsanity run we have is Travis Fulgham. Anybody remember that name? Travis Fulgham was a 6th round pick to the Detroit Lions as a wide receiver in 2019. He would finish his rookie season getting 3 receptions for 0 yards, end up getting cut and signing with the Eagles for 2020. Then in week 4, he would finally receive playing time where he would go on to score a touchdown in 4 out of 5 of his next games, where one of those games he would catch for 150 yards, and in 3 of the others he would catch for over 70. And then in weeks 9 and after, he would not go on to catch a single touchdown or record more than 30 receiving yards in a single game. He would then once again trade places and sign with Denver in the offseason, where he would sit on the bench for the entire year, getting his chance to play in 1 game at the end of the 2021 season before never playing again in the league. Travis Fulgham is extra funny to me because I know that there are Eagle fans out there who have his jersey, and you're stuck with it. All right, moving on, we have me kind of guessing a Linsanity run here, but I'm going to go with Tommy DeVito and say that he is never ever going to even comparably play close to what he did last year during that little stretch. Dude, this guy was an undrafted quarterback, got his chance last year, stunk it up, then had a tremendous game versus Washington and continued to have a 2-week stretch after that where he played very good. Caught fire, blew up, an Italian pasta company signed him, New York started to trademark the whole DeVito thing, and then in his last 3 games of the season, he never broke 200 passing yards or threw a touchdown, and now going into the offseason, they picked up Drew Lock to serve as Daniel Jones's backup. Like, imagine if you were that pasta company and you signed him to that big contract, and now he's never ever gonna get any exposure. Next up, we have Cam Akers' Linsanity run at the end of the 2022 season. You guys remember that little stint of time where I was really talking him up and I thought he was gonna blow up this last year? That's because of this Linsanity run. Cam Akers, if you didn't know, was a running back drafted by the Rams back in 2020. To start his rookie year, he kind of split the role, but at the end of the year, he kind of started to take over. Then at the start of 2021 in training camp, he tore his Achilles, missed the entire year, tried to come back in the playoffs, was terrible. And then in 2022, he would go off and on the bench until the last 3 weeks of the season, where he would throw up 100 rushing yards in each of the last 3 games, scoring 3 total touchdowns. Then to start 2023 with the Rams, he had 22 carries for 29 yards, got traded to the Vikings, and then got hurt. It's an unfortunate truth here because I want to like Cam Akers, but he's fried and will never ever have a run of games like he did in 2022 ever again. Now moving on, we have 2021 Kadarius Toney for a whopping 2 weeks. These 2 weeks are the reason that this guy has any credibility to think that, okay, maybe someday he could be good. Because if these 2 weeks didn't happen, he probably would not be on a roster at all right now. Kadarius Toney was drafted in 2021 by the New York Giants at 20 overall. He would have a very slow start to his rookie season. Then in week 4 versus New Orleans, he would have a breakout performance with 6 receptions for 78 yards. And then the following week, he would go on to torch Dallas for for 10 receptions and 189 yards. After that game with the Giants, he never caught over 40 yards in a game again. And in his last 2 seasons with Kansas City, he has broken 50 receiving yards in a game twice. He's garbage. And saving the best for last, we've got 2017 Case Keenum and 2017 Nick Foles. You guys somehow haven't heard about this dilemma yet. That was one of the craziest years for quarterbacks ever. This picture I'm showing you right now is real. That was the final fucking 4. Now again, if you didn't know, Keenum stepped in for an injured Sam Bradford. Nick Foles stepped in for an injured Carson Wentz. And both of these backup quarterbacks ended up having career years. Keenum would bring the Vikings to the NFC Championship game, only to lose to Foles and the Eagles, who would go on to win a Super Bowl. Then after that year, Keenum would take his 12-3 record to Denver, where they would sign him as their starter, where he would go 6-10 and be out of a starting job after a year. Now, if you look at Nick Foles, he was signed to a massive contract by the Jags. He went 0-4 through 3 touchdowns, got hurt, and then signed with Chicago as a backup. Is that not insane to anybody else? That those 2 quarterbacks could put up so much success in 1 year, completely reevaluate their careers, and then lose it all again within a calendar year. Like, it was just nuts. Anyway, that is going to be it, ladies and gentlemen, for 10 of the biggest Linsanity runs that I have seen in the NFL. If you guys like this video, you already know what to do to show support, and please let me know some Linsanity runs that you think I forgot. Anyway, as always, I'm going to get this edited so you guys can watch it on time. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and as always, I will see you in the next upload.